And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Mill in the morning. Thank you all for joining us. Phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Don't forget the KIDO Talk Radio newsletter. We give you that twice a week. We don't spam you, just the stories of the week about the issues that matter to you. Joining us now, the author of Tin Cans and Greyhounds, the destroyers that won 2 world wars, Mr. Clint Johnson. Mr. Johnson, thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me, Kevin.
First off, can you tell us a little bit about the state of the Navy today versus the state of the Navy that liberated the world?
Well, the Navy today is much more modern, but much smaller. What they call destroyers today are not recognizable as what the destroyers that fought in 2 world wars. Destroyers in World War II had torpedoes, depth charges, hedgehogs, 5-inch guns, and 40-millimeter guns and 20-millimeter guns. And today's destroyers are kind of stealth-looking ships. I'm not even sure that you even see any guns on the latest versions of the destroyers today. So I'm reluctant to even say they're the same type of ship type. I think they use the word destroyer, but they're just not the same ships that these men fought on in World War I, World War II.
Well, how has the warfare in the sea changed, sir?
Well, now it's become much more missile-oriented. The ships are designed to deliver surface-to-surface missiles and cruise missiles, and there's really not onshore bombardment, which was one thing that the destroyers did during World War II. You fired the cannons, you sent the amphibious Marines onto the beaches, and the destroyers would get in close and support them, and they just don't do that sort of attack anymore.
Well, let's talk a little bit about World War II and the destroyers. Why write this book?
Well, I've been a Civil War historian, and I was looking to get into something new, and I just ran across the stories of the USS Jacob Jones. The first one was the only warship we lost in World War I, sunk off the coast of England in December 1917, sunk by a U-boat, and then they named another ship that was being built, the Jacob Jones, to replace it. It was the only warship we lost off the coast of the United States during World War II, also sunk by a U-boat off Cape May, New Jersey in February 1942. Both lost most of their crews, both lost crewmen to their own depth charges exploding. There were a lot of coincidences that fascinated me, and there just wasn't enough to write a book about it. So I started looking deeper into research and realized that there was not a comprehensive general history book covering the history of destroyers. And then I wanted to go ahead and look at the 4 nations, major fighting nations, United States, Great Britain, Germany, and Japan, and put them all into one book so people could compare and contrast the destroyers of all these nations, and came up with some interesting facts. That number one, one thing that we think of the Germans as being a technical people. They designed the V-1 rocket, the V-2 rocket, but they made lousy destroyers compared to anything that the United States, Great Britain, Japan had. They just terrible destroyers. They shorted out, their turrets shorted out in heavy seas. Their engines broke down. They didn't have enough fuel. They were fuel thirsty. Didn't have enough ammo storage. So they played no factor in World War II, whereas the Japanese and the American destroyers fought most of the battles that we think about during the Pacific were between destroyers.
Clint Johnson joining us, Tin Cans and Greyhounds, talking about the Navy then and the Navy now. Many people are very worried that our Navy just isn't up to snuff, not because of the personnel, but because we haven't funded it, and we have additional challenges. In the old days, it was the Japanese. Today, it looks like China wants to replace us as the naval superpower. Your thoughts?
Well, I would think that China, I think, is developing aircraft carriers and also missiles to attack our aircraft carriers. So it's become much more of a high-tech war or potential for war, I suppose, than what it would have been back in the World War II days. You only had to worry about hundreds of miles covering an ocean from ship to ship. You saw each other at 20 miles away. If you were an aircraft carrier in World War II, you could see, you could attack each other from several hundred miles away. Now we're talking about thousands of miles away, that the aircraft carriers probably would not even see each other, and the missiles that they would fire at aircraft carriers would not be manned. It would be much more of a technical war than what we had in World War II, where you had men against men. It's become kind of like a giant video game now, except on the receiving end are going to be men and women on these ships. So it's something to be concerned about. I think that China is becoming much more of a naval power, and they're also trying to claim more areas of the Pacific Ocean that they really had no right to, and they're even building their own islands these days. It's building islands from the ocean up, and I don't think anybody ever anticipated that. At least for our war planners, never anticipated it happening until China started doing it.
Indeed, our great friends, the Chinese. So back to World War II, what really tilted the sea battles?
Well, the destroyers in the Pacific, our industrial capacity was so much greater than Japan. I use the example of the Fletcher-class destroyer, which was the most built class that we had in the United States. We had 10 different shipyards starting to build them right about at the very end of 1941, right before the Japanese attack at Pearl Harbor. We built 175 Fletchers during the course of the war. The Japanese had a comparable class destroyer called the Yugomo. They only built 19 of those at the same time. We built 175 of the Fletchers, and they could not replace them. Once that Yugomo was built, it sunk. It was gone. But the United States could keep building more Fletchers. We started building the next class up, the Allen Sumner class, and it was purely a matter of attrition. Admiral Yamamoto warned the Japanese high command, if we don't crush the United States in the very first 2 or 3 battles, their industrial might will overwhelm us. And by the end of 1942, when these Fletchers first started coming into the oceans and the Solomon Islands, we could really see the end of the war. We could tell we would be winning World War II within a year after the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. And the Japanese knew it, and it was just a matter of us keep pressing forward, sinking more destroyers and cruisers and battleships, and we just kept pressing forward to Japan.
Clint Robinson joining us, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. You mentioned Pearl Harbor. Recovering from Pearl Harbor, you've written about these destroyers. You've written about the tin cans and the Greyhounds. How did the Navy not only emotionally and psychologically recover, but how in the world did the Navy recover when we're talking about getting the ships back to sea?
Well, they had 8 battleships at Pearl Harbor. We did. And 6 of them were repaired and went back to war. But I kind of make the case that the Japanese targeted the wrong ships at Pearl Harbor. All of those battleships were pre-World War I. Most of them were built in 1913, 1915. There were 50 destroyers that were based at Pearl Harbor. They were all relatively new destroyers built in the 1930s. I decided to add up the battle stars of all of those ships at Pearl Harbor. Of the 6 battleships that went back to fight, they only won 32 battle stars during the rest of the war, meaning they were engaged in some sort of battle with the Japanese. Those 50 destroyers that were there had 438 battle stars that were awarded to them. So they did a lot more action, fought in a lot more battles against the Japanese. There were only really 2 battleship-to-battleship battles in the Pacific, but there were hundreds of destroyer against battleships. In the Battle off Samar in October 1944, we had a squadron of destroyers and destroyer escorts went headlong into the face of an entire fleet of Japanese battleships and cruisers and destroyers. The Japanese were so surprised by this counterattack that they actually broke off their attack and turned around after sinking 2 of our destroyers and 1 destroyer escort. But it saved the 6 escort carriers these little ships were protecting, and it saved the landing area that we were landing troops and supplies in the Leyte Gulf. So it was just pure bravery and tactics of these destroyers that kind of saved the day for us in that particular battle. And during the rest of the battle in World War II, that the destroyers started forming themselves into attack squadrons. They would find the Japanese fleets with radar. They would go in, launch torpedoes, wait for those torpedoes to hit, if they hit anything, and then they would fire their cannons at them, and then they would turn around and run, get out of the way. It became a very effective tactic that we were able to perfect against the Japanese.
Clint, anything else you would like to share with us here on KIDO Talk Radio? We appreciate you joining us. And, you know, recently I've gone to Pearl Harbor, and you just see how small it was. And when you visualize the Japanese and how low those planes were flying, just amazing that we recovered from that and we saved the world.
Well, it was, and it was all because of young men, 18, 16, 17 years old, up to the mid-20s, that all developed a purpose. I ran across an account of a master chief that said, we took these boys, they were the fellows that shined our shoes, made our ice cream sodas, and in butcher shops, all of these jobs that really don't exist anymore. And he said, we took them out and we gave them work to do. The harder work that we gave them, the more work that they got, the better they liked it. And they worked so hard they didn't have time to be afraid. And I found another account that says the men were kind of nervous until the Japanese started firing at them, and then they had a purpose. I was really struck by that under the pressure of combat, these fellows all formed into a team, and that's the team that we used to defeat the Japanese and the Germans.
Well, Clint, Tin Cans and Greyhounds, the destroyers that won two world wars, we appreciate you, and we're going to have you back, sir. Thank you for acknowledging our great Navy.
Okay, there's a lot of Navy stories to tell, Kevin, so please ask me back when you can.
Yes, sir. Take care, Clint.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. What a nice young man. We urge you to go out and check out that book. And, you know, so many times as young people, we learned about Pearl Harbor and World War II. Now it's kind of glossed over, unfortunately. And it's wonderful that we have a historian like Clint keeping us informed about the destroyers that won 2 world wars. It is 6:18. You're listening to Kevin Miller. Phone number is 580-5436. 580-KIDO. We are looking to figure out if the president will sign this bill. Boy, Sean Hannity unloading on people. And if you missed Lars Larson last night, I was on my way to bed. I tuned in Lars, and all of a sudden Ann Coulter's on, and she really gave it to the president. We're going to share that interview. And if you haven't heard about Lars Larson Show, weeknights 6 to 9, right after Sean Hannity. It's one of the most compelling interviews that I've ever heard, and I can't wait to hear if you agree with Ann Coulter. She says the country is over. You'll hear that next. Coming up, Kevin Miller, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Blessed to be with you. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Boy, this is going to be a tough one, folks. I'm not even going to introduce it. Here we go. Ann Coulter with Lars Larson. By the way, Lars Larson, weeknight 6 to 9, right after Sean Hannity on KIDO Talk Radio.
Or are you too angry to speak tonight?
Well, I guess I'm resigned. It's over now. There's no fooling around anymore. You can say I was too quick to say he wasn't going to build the wall. You can say I was right. You can like me. You can not like me. It's over now because he's signing a bill that prohibits him from building any part of the wall. As you and your listeners, I think, know, Lars, I've been the one saying since November 8th, hey, you're commander-in-chief. You have always had authority to build the wall. That is part of your job description. They've talked about, national emergency and his special emergency powers, whether he uses that or not. He's the commander-in-chief, and his job is to keep America safe. But now he's signed a bill in which he has signed those powers away. The bill that he signed prohibits any part of the wall going any place on our border. It allows not the prototypes, not a wall, but some gentle pedestrian bollard fencing in one small section, the Santa Fe section, but only if the local authorities agree. They must have picked that area of the border because they're all left-wing Democrats who will not agree. It allows, it's worse than amnesty. It's a pre-approved amnesty. You may not be deported if a, quote, unaccompanied child is a member of your household. This will put human smuggling into overdrive. You could be an MS-13 member, anyone, any illegals in this country. Just get a kid in the household, just traffic that child across the border, you got amnesty. That's the bill he's signed. Now try to go to the Supreme Court and say, hey, I'm commander-in-chief. It's my job to defend America. And the Supreme Court will say, that's funny, because whose signature is this on a bill that says the commander-in-chief isn't allowed to build a wall? Whose John Hancock is on this? He has just signed away his inherent powers under the Constitution. It is over. There will not be a fence. There will not be a wall. There will not be a garden trellis. And there will be mass amnesty, open borders like you've never seen before. The country's over. There's no point to what you do. There's no point to what I do. There's no point to listening to this radio show because
I don't know about that. By the way, you're listening to 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. That is Ann Coulter with Lars Larson. We'll get your reaction to that. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Of course, Ann has broken away from the president. We believe in the president. We believe that there will be a wall. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Good morning, Dave.
They recovered.
And we appreciate that. Phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Let's continue on with Lars Larson and Ann Coulter from last night on KIDO Talk Radio.
The whole country goes the way of California. America was nice while it lasted. But they outmaneuvered us, the people who wanted to destroy this country, though we didn't really have any of us apparently negotiating. This bill just passed the United States Senate 83-16. I understand some of the Democrats voted against it, so it won't be held against them. They can't be blamed for open borders. You know who can be? The guy who put his John Hancock on the bill, Donald Trump. Full open borders like something Hillary Clinton couldn't have gotten through.
And you haven't mentioned the implications for 2020 and the presidential election.
It's over.
So that means we're going to have President Elizabeth Warren, President Pocahontas coming at us?
No, it's Kamala Harris probably.
Not Joe Biden? He's not going to swoop in at the last minute with his shotgun and his
who
weird...
cares?
At this point, it's who? So are you going to stop writing columns at this point?
Who the governor of California is? Oh, maybe we could get something good through California. Who cares? It's over. No, the only fun we can have is taking down the people who wrecked our country. I'll volunteer to work for AOC to tax the rich out of existence. I can be poor. Gin up the ethnic hatreds on the Democratic side. And I guess enjoy the cheap labor while it lasts.
You really are that discouraged. I mean, look, I realize the reality of what you've been saying because this is where we're headed. We're not going to get a wall, and the end result is going to be we'll have a fully operational federal government spending away at $4.2 trillion every year and building up the deficit, which I understand now is north of $22 trillion, and we will have no wall. And we will
open border.
Let's get back to this. There's going to be money for border security. A lot of people aren't happy about it. I know Sean is not happy about it. Lars apparently is not happy about it. We know Ann Coulter isn't happy about it. You have a government shutdown. I don't see in the bill where the president says there's not going to be a wall. Nancy Pelosi said no wall. You've got over $1 billion, 55 miles of wall. All is not lost. All is not lost. But I would like your reaction to the conversation between Lars Larson and Ann Coulter, and we'll talk about it. Maybe we should urge the president not to sign the bill. Of course, that's supposed to go down this morning. Kevin Miller, you're listening to 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning, Kevin.
KIDO Talk Radio, Kevin Miller in the morning. Phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. A lot going on today. By the way, if you're a follower of the show Empire, there was a story that broke, a couple weeks ago, where one of the actors said that he was attacked. he was attacked by members wearing the Make America Great hats, that all of a sudden he was called racial names. They put like a noose on him, I think. All these horrendous things. Well, now all of a sudden, ABC Chicago is investigating and asking the question whether or not this actor staged this attack or whether or not it was legitimate. They're calling it hate or hoax. Now, remember, we have enough challenges in our great country. We don't need people ginning up racial angst. We'll have a little more about that. Empire at one time, one of the best shows on TV. I never watched it, but a lot of people did. And we'll talk a little bit about that. If you're just tuning in, we are focusing in on this issue involving Ann Coulter saying it's over. The country is over with her interview last night from our friend Lars Larson. Let's go to the phones and get your reaction. We go to Hank in Boise, then we'll have more of the interview. Hank, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller. Hello, Hank. Hank? Well, we lost Hank. This is the beauty of being here without a net at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. We move on, warts and all. Let's go back to what Ann Coulter said. If you're just tuning in, Lars Larson interviewed Ann Coulter last night, and Ann was not happy with the president.
Open
and just
borders.
for fun, they're giving the Smithsonian $1 billion. Not $1 million, $1 billion. So, it's not like we lack the money, but let's really humiliate the president and spend the money on a museum. Let's have an art project where we take $1 billion and just burn it as our art project. Hey, will you sign this, Trump? Why, yes, he will.
Now, Ann, by this logic, then no matter who was elected president in 2016, this is where we were headed.
No, it isn't.
Well,
If
hold on.
somebody
Who
who
would
is
have done
a
it
fraud
differently?
and a con man and an imbecile, who else would have signed this? Oh, good Lord.
You think Ted Cruz would have given us a border wall?
I think Hillary Clinton wouldn't sign this.
Well, signing away her power? No, I think Hillary Clinton is very wedded to power. But my question
Who
is...
cares? She wants to wreck the country. Pelosi wants to wreck the country. The Republican donors want to wreck the country, and they did it. A wall, a fence, prohibited, and the president signed it. Now try to say, I'm the commander-in-chief. I have the right to do something I just signed away the right to do.
More on that in a minute. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. We go to Liberty Linda, up early this morning on 107.5 FM, 580 AM with Kevin Miller. Good morning, Liberty Linda.
Good morning. I'm raring to go this morning, and all I can say is, wow, Sean Hannity was hot last night. He was so good. And Sean Hannity, at the end of his show, said he was happy about the bill. So I don't know if anybody continued to listen to him, but he actually said that. He reversed from what he said at the beginning of the show. So I am very excited to hear what your listeners had to say today, Kevin.
Well, what about Ann Coulter? She was not happy with the president.
I couldn't believe what she was saying. There was a part of the bill that doesn't sound good to us about amnesty and this and that, but I can't believe that our president would turn around and shift and become a different president than he has been. He's too adamant about helping the people. He's done 100% what I believe so far. And, so I can't believe he's going to turn around and be a different person than he has been. I wish we could sit down and read this bill word for word ourselves.
Well, we have someone who's read it. His name is Hank. We had him a minute ago, but he's on deck.
Oh, I missed that. I just missed it. And, of course,
No, Hank is coming up in a minute. He had phone issues.
Okay, good. So, yeah, Hank has knowledge about all things. Believe me, I talked to him for hours. He's a very good friend. And, so anyway, I can't believe that our president would switch from the person he is and how he loves this country to what Ann Coulter says. Now, someone else? Yes, but not our president. So at this point in time, no, I can't believe what Ann Coulter said. And, I've loved Ann Coulter for the years. I think we all have her, those conservatives that call in. So I want to hear what the rest of your callers have to say. I'm excited about it, especially Hank. And, what a time we're going through. I mean, I think if something happened to our president, we'd be gone. So anyway, Kevin, what do we just think about this?
We're gonna break it down for you, Liberty Linda. Thank you for listening and for the call this morning.
Well, we love you and just keep up the good work. And Hank, come on in, call back.
All right, thank you, Liberty Linda.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So then I want to go to the why. Why did he do this? This is a guy who clearly, throughout this entire episode from the summer of 2015 to present, has wanted to be president. He's wanted the power. He's fought back hard on a lot of things, but not on this, not on his one signature issue. And the why
on many of his signature issues. I noticed that one of the things everything I love.
Okay, let's hold on to that. We'll go back to Hank. Hank, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Hank.
Good morning. One of the problems here that's not being discussed enough in this was the defection of certain Republican senators who played a role in putting these poison pills in the bill. Well, I'll name the list, the cast of characters: Romney of Utah, Sasser, Nebraska, Lamar Alexander, Tennessee. There was a question whether or not the president could uphold his emergency power if both houses vote against him. The four of them, or the five of them, gave just enough votes. And they basically had to bargain this garbage into the bill because basically McConnell was forced to have to hold his majority in the Senate to back the president on the emergency powers. And this has not been brought out in the president's defense. Colder, who should be knowledgeable of what's going on in Washington, should be also pinpointing the Republican defectors. I'll name them again: Romney of Utah, Lamar Alexander, Ben Sasser, Cornyn of Texas, believe it or not. So I think that, and Collins of Maine. So I want to bring in Murkowski. I want to bring this up because those votes would have been enough to defeat the president if the Democrats made their move on this. So I'm going to tell you bluntly, the president's back was up against the wall on this. I think that in 50-50 hindsight, the president would have probably done better to have gone ahead and sign the stinking thing beforehand, even without the wall thing, and then declare the emergency. I mean, we can only say that with 50-50 hindsight. But as far as what went colder, if you go around saying give it up, it's all over. It discourages other people. We have to fight for every last inch. It does no good to surrender to these people. I'll never surrender to these Democrats.
Well, hang on for a minute, Hank. Stay with me. Here we go.
Loved about him, and that I celebrated in the Trump We Trust. Whatever happened to the end of the carried interest deduction? That was fantastic. For once, we're going to get a Republican who isn't going to write a blank check to Wall Street. Just get them to pay taxes the same way the rest of us do. Oh, but he hired Gary Cohn from Goldman Sachs. That was a Jared hire. And Gary Cohn and Jared, both of them lifelong Democrats whom Trump brought into the White House, said, no, you don't want to be raising taxes on Wall Street. All the people who hate you. Nope, didn't do that. Where is that new NAFTA bill? And when did he end the wars, the pointless killing fields of Afghanistan, Syria? I mean, when all these Americans died in Syria, American troops, most Americans said, what? We're fighting in Syria?
Your thoughts?
Well, I think that we need to get focused on this whole thing. I think that you have to remember that the Democrats revealed their hand by specifically making these points in Texas being the point, because the whole thing is about flipping Texas. This is what it's all about, and I think that has to be kept in mind in all of these things of what the Democrats are up to in this. I think that we can put more border people or more people in there. If we get other areas of the country closed off of walls, we can concentrate authorities on those problem areas in Texas. To do nothing is not an option. I think the president had no choice, and I think we need to back him.
Well, no, I agree with you on that, but her saying that he signed away his emergency powers and everything, I don't know where she's getting that. You've read the bill.
Well, I didn't read the bill. I didn't have a chance to read the bill. I'm just saying my basing what Hannity and others disclosed about the bill, and also I also listened to Lars Larson last night. That's where my information is coming from, and none of them mentioned that he signed it. They mentioned all the stuff that Dan Coulter mentioned about what was going on in Texas and the mayors and all that stuff. I'm aware of that through them, but I haven't had the chance to read the bill. In fact, the bill wasn't even printed.
Right. When we heard you read the bill, we're going, where did you get it? Because we're back to that. I know we covered that, but what I'm saying is, Nancy Pelosi, we're back to, well, you vote for it, and then we'll find out what's in it. Hank, we're not giving up. Thank you, brother.
That's right. We should never give up.
God bless, brother. You have a great day. Bye-bye. All right, Hank, he's not giving up. Ann Coulter continues. By the way, a great get by our friend Lars Larson last night, Ann Coulter. And look, we welcome all opinions, but whether we agree or we disagree.
This is the guy who ran against pointless wars. He hasn't kept any of his main campaign promises. But today, I'm sure there will be a portion of the base, probably a portion of your listeners, who don't know that he has just signed away his right to ever build a wall, that today it is completely over. I don't know if he signed the bill yet, but he said he's signing the bill yet. Yeah. It just passed the Senate. It's over. And there'll be idiots. I'm sure they'll keep him happy at his rallies. Yeah. But the idea that he can win re-election after this, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The country's over.
Ann, I appreciate it. That's Ann Coulter. You can read her column at anncoulter.com. By the way, I want to tell you something. When do you want to spot that burglar? When he's
There we have. Thank you, Lars. He's going to help you spot the burglar. Phone numbers here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. We are waiting for the president to sign this bill, and we will get your thoughts on that. Other issues of the day. Yesterday, in an incredible show, and it happened later in the program, and that's why if you miss something, you can always go to KIDOTalkRadio.com and get the podcast, where there's a bill being proposed. No, it has nothing to do with hemp, but it has to do with giving police the right to arrest someone without a warrant. You can be arrested without a warrant if this new state law passes, because it's about school security. So if you threaten a school, not even on school grounds, or you do it online, the police can arrest you. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And by the way, we always want to salute our friends, the police. It's getting more and more dangerous in the Treasure Valley, and you guys, you gals, keep us safe. And to you, the families of law enforcement and first responders, we so thank you for protecting us. We're all tough guys, but when someone breaks into our home, or someone runs us off the road, or, gosh forbid, something else happens, it's the brave men and women of law enforcement that keep us safe. So we can't thank you enough for doing your job and protecting and serving. You're listening to Kevin Miller, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, on the home for Hannity, KIDO Talk Radio. Blessed to be with you, Kevin Miller in the morning, waking up on the right side. 580-5436, 580-KIDO.
This lawless end run around Congress is a craven act built on lies and distraction. The president would steal funds we use to support our brave young soldiers just to pay for an ancient monument to waste.
There we have it. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the congresswoman and disgraced former head of the DNC, fearing the president will declare a national emergency.
Make no mistake, Congress will defend our constitutional authorities in every way that we can.
I could sleep easier at night knowing that Chuck Schumer is defending me. What about you? Holly in Caldwell joins us now, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Holly.
Well, you're only as good as your advisors and the information that you're given. I would like to see every elected official have to complete at least 25 hours on civics and the Constitution. They use it like it's a word, and it makes people feel comfortable, like Mr. Schumer, who probably could care less about the Constitution. And honestly, our president has done a lot of unconstitutional things. He's been probably given the wrong information to sign into law the NDAA, which most Americans don't realize can hold them for up to 5 years without a trial. A lot of other things like just giving away bump stocks because he wanted to. And, I like our president, and I like most of the things that he's done. But this euphoria of either you support him or you don't, when he isn't given the correct information by people who are obviously trying to destroy the country, is very concerning. What else can I say? I think that's also another reason why.
Well, let's go back to let's go to the simple question. Do you believe, Ann Coulter, that it's over?
Well, I had called in before and people's views that we really don't have any type of security on the border. Obviously, if we're only going to get 52 miles and he signed away his rights, if that's true, yes. And in that regard, yes. I think if we are attacking the good Americans that are here and targeting them for surveillance because they want to protect their life, liberty, and property, and we're letting in whoever we want to vote in even more lunacy, then maybe it is.
But that's the way it's been, and that was under President Bush as well as President Obama. Holly, the federal government knows what books you check out in the library, what you buy at the grocery store, yet there's no requirements for people who come here illegally to obey the laws. It's the hypocrisy.
I agree with you. I agree with you. My husband was stabbed by an illegal, and the only thing that happened to that guy was he was sent back and probably came back here the next week. So we do need security. But the problem is much bigger, and we need the citizens to understand the Constitution. We need the elected officials to. We have got to clean house in the Department of Justice. If Americans really want to fix the country, instead of just debating about what's on a piece of paper in our Constitution, they need to be rallying to fix the Department of Justice. And like what the Gem State Patriot talked about, all the money that goes into the big pharma. I mean, the people really no longer have a voice. And they make them believe they do, but honestly, the people that have the money, the people that behind the Convention of States that are taking people's emails and emailing legislators just when they go on there to find out information about that rather than informing them and letting them and talk to their own legislators. And, we've already voted that down twice, but the money is still coming to try to swindle people into that. And
boy, that's quite a leap going from Ann Coulter to Big Pharma to the Convention of States. That's like takes me 3 hours.
You're probably going to have to give me an hour on the show, Kevin. Anyhow, as far as that, her, it's really hard to say. We're only as good as the information we're given. So give it to us in writing. Show us where he signed it away.
Great point, Holly. Thank you for joining us.
Have a great day.
All right, Holly in Caldwell. 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Let's get you to work safely and on time.